Good evening, everyone. I'll call the public hearing to order. Tonight is our opportunity for the public or any other people that wish to speak to the board about the 2020 budget. The hearing will commence right now, and then we will adjourn to go to our regular board meeting. So the next, I'd ask the clerk if we have any written comments that are directed toward the budget topic.
No written comments.
All right, I will open it up to the people in attendance. If anyone wishes to speak to the board regarding the budget, the 2020 budget, does anyone wish to speak?
I have a list.
Oh, you have a list of that. Please read the format for public comment.
The board will hear concerns members of the public wish to raise, but will not discuss or take action on any matter until the matter can be placed on an agenda with proper notice to the public. The board welcomes citizens to present their concerns to the board in a professional manner relevant to issues affecting Kewaunee County. Each citizen may take 3 minutes to present their concern, and the board has allotted a total of 20 minutes for this portion of the meeting. Please be mindful the board may halt any disruptive comments and any comments that are threatening, vulgar, or abusive.
Thank you. You will have an opportunity to speak to other board issues when we commence the county board meeting, but this is strictly for topics regarding the budget. So please call the first person who has signed up.
Jermaine Bertrand.
I can't reach, man.
I am speaking tonight in regards to the 2020 budget for my office. I currently have a part-time position in my office, which I intended to keep in my budget, and the administrator removed it. On September 24th at the Land Information Council meeting, I asked that a portion of the Strategic Initiative grant money be used towards this position, and it was passed by the council. I then wrote a letter as to why I need this position and went to the executive committee, and they also voted to put it back in my budget. I then went to finance meeting 2 days later, and they voted against it. This position I want to keep is very part-time, but the work that she does is very important to my office. We started indexing real estate documents on the computer in 1992. We then had our old records scanned into the system so the images would be there. These documents have no way to be found by title companies or attorneys, or the public who may search our index unless they have a book and page number. When Sandy comes in, she enters these by name and the legal description. And by legal description, I mean exactly where the property is located. For example, the southwest section number and town and range. And this information can then be seen with the image, and when a search is done, it can be found. I can't stress enough how important this is that this information be made available to title companies and attorneys. We are currently back to the 1980s in our index. My deputy and I don't have the time needed to be consistent with getting this done. Mr. Felt is proposing that Tammy from the Land Information Office, who is training to become the property lister, help our office. I don't have an issue with this, but don't believe it will work the way he is proposing it will. She is still training for her current position, and I have been told that there will be months she will not be able to come in due to their busy times during certain parts of the year. I feel I should not have to give up a position that benefits my office. In closing, I have to say it's very frustrating when I take the time to go into these meetings and one committee votes to keep it and the next simply removes it. I left that meeting feeling like I no longer have anything to say about how I run my office. I ask that those of you who have not read my letter to the Finance Committee go in and look at the agenda for the October 9th executive meeting and read it, and consider voting next month to keep this in my office. And I ask if you have any questions to please call or send me an email. Thank you.
Thank you. Next person, please.
Steve Hansen.
I just want to say that I support Jermaine retaining.
Could you use the mic, please? I'm Steve Hansen, the land information director for the county, and I just want to say that I support Jermaine retaining the current part-time indexing position in her office. Taking away that position and requiring the real property lister in my office to spend 2 hours a day in the Register of Deeds office doing this work will result in Kewaunee County having a property lister who isn't nearly as ready to take over in a couple of years when I retire as she would be if she remained in my office. I have no problem with our office helping out the Register of Deeds office with indexing up until the time of my retirement. But we can help out from our office whenever time permits, rather than having a fixed schedule forced upon us. We already have the Register of Deeds software installed in the computers in our office to do this work. I am not disputing that during certain times of the year, we now have time available to help out with indexing. With my retirement in mind, our office has implemented changes since the first of the year, which have resulted in the same amount of work getting done in a shorter period of time. We've installed new software that doesn't require as much data entry time, and we've streamlined our proofreading process so it isn't as time consuming as it once was. However, there are still times throughout the year such as when we are receiving assessment data from the local assessors and when we are calculating tax bills, that the property lister needs to be in our office 8 hours a day. And once I retire, the property lister definitely needs to be a full-time position. My plan over the course of the next couple of years was to have the property lister trained in how to administer the land division ordinance, do parcel splits, and calculate property taxes on her own. These are all things that I still do. Forcing the property lister to spend 2 hours a day in the Register of Deeds office during this training period will significantly reduce her exposure to the types of situations that she's going to have to resolve on her own in a couple of years. I feel very strongly about this, but I also realize that at this point in the budget process, you have to find the money from someplace in order for Jermaine's part-time position to be reinserted into the 2020 budget. That's why I would like to suggest that with regard to this part-time position, you leave the budget alone as it is and take the $8,747 that's needed for Jermaine's part-time position from my land information fund, which has a balance of $133,000 at the start of this year. This should make everybody happy. Scott will get the levy reduction that he desires by having LIO grant money go towards wages. I'll be happy because the property lister will remain in my office during her training period, and Jermaine will be happy because she gets to retain her part-time person. And on top of that, our office will be helping out with the indexing whenever we can. So now that you have a way to pay for it, please follow the recommendations of both the Land Council and the Executive Committee and retain this part-time position in the Register of Deeds office. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Anyone else on the list?
Lynn Kroll.
Good evening. I'm Lynn Kroll. I'm the chair of the Kewaunee County Economic Development Corporation. For those of you who don't know me, I wanted to thank you guys for last year's support in our budget, or in your budget, and I wanted to give you an update on where we're at for 2020. We're currently working on plans for 2020, and we're specializing in 3 areas so that we're not everyone or everything to everyone. We have one person. You guys have met Richard. I know he was here just a month or 2 ago. So we're focusing on business retention, workforce development, and the quality of life, and promoting that quality of life. So we hope to continue to have your support in the 2020 budget. If you have questions, I will be here through your first break. And then also, I wanted to announce one other thing. We have partnered with the Luxembourg Chamber and Kewaunee Rotary, so we're not the sole person trying to do a fundraiser, which was the Taste of Kewaunee County. It's the new and improved and now called Booze, because it's near Halloween, and Bites, and it's on October 30th at the fairgrounds. If you have any questions on that, you can see Gary or Lee. Thank you.
Thank you, Lynn. Next.
Kim Larson.
Hello and good evening. It's great to be back here. Almost a year ago, probably exactly a year ago, I was here as an interim executive director for Kewaunee County Economic Development. And we are so thrilled that we were able to get support so that we could bring in a new executive director. So Richard Baker has been here for most of the year, and I think he's been out doing a great job. There's a lot to learn in a very short amount of time. I believe he just came back from Manufacturing Career Days in Algoma with featuring 3 of our top businesses and helping students understand what opportunities there are here. I've been very involved in a number of different committees, but one of the biggest and most important as a result of the broadband survey that we did last year is that the business community as well as the residential community are in dire need of much better broadband. And that is not wireless cell phones. It is fast, high-speed, consistent broadband transmission across the county so your businesses can actually run credit cards. And people who come up here to buy a case of wine from Cold Country don't end up having to go home without it because they can't run the credit card and nobody carries cash because they just take it for granted. So I would ask that you continue to support the broadband efforts. There's a budget item there that we wholeheartedly need. It can't be delayed. It absolutely has to keep progressing so that we can promote our county to other businesses and also our students so that they want to come back. Maybe they go away to college, but they'll come back because there's opportunity here. Without the broadband, it's not going to happen. So I hope that you had a chance to look at the annual report that we put out for the year, and it talks about that broadband survey as well as the demographics in the county. We really need your support again for 2020. It's going to be another big year, and we really need your support. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Matt Josky.
Well, good evening. Thank you for allowing me to speak. I want to start off by just a big sense of gratitude to both Mr. Paul Kunish and Administrator Scott Feld for all the work that they've done in trying to refine this budget. Just like anything, it was a process. And of course, being the Sheriff's Department, one of the larger budgets with a lot of moving parts, we had some great conversations. And I just wanted to bring you up to date on one of the items that was removed just as a bookmark for the upcoming months. Our 911 system is woefully end of life. We've been notified of that quite a while ago. In fact, we have had to revert back to pre-E911. So those of you that were part of the enhanced 911 well over a decade ago, we've actually reverted back behind that because our entire mapping system is down. And the company that provides it is not going to service it. So literally when we get a 911, whereas traditionally the location would plop up on a map, we now have to have the dispatchers go into Google Maps, type in the Latin longs, and then get that up through Google Maps. You can about imagine what that's like. So we have not only not gotten ready for next gen 911, we've actually reverted back to before E911. So we're looking forward. The good news is there is a grant. There's federal monies that are coming down through the state, and it's a 60-40 match. And it was that 40% that I did have in the 2020 budget that was removed. Understood, but I just again want everybody to understand as a place marker for the upcoming months that grant will be coming out this fall, and it is my intention to apply for that grant because we cannot afford to have our 911 system go down. We are on borrowed time, and so as soon as that grant does come out, I will be applying for it, and I will be making requests for that 40% of that grant match. So again, just wanted to talk to you in regards to a placeholder for future months. I understand why it had to be taken out. It was told to me by County Administrator Feld that we'd be looking towards a contingency fund for that purpose. So again, I just want everybody to be on the same page when I show up in front of you once again. Everybody's doing great, kind of budget related. We are going to tour our first facility tomorrow, Green Lake County. So we're going to tour their jail facility as well as their public safety telecommunication system and get a good idea of some of the ideas that are out there. So thank you, everybody. And for those who have not toured the jail, I'm there all the time. So 24/7, give me a shout. I'm more than happy to give you a tour. A couple of you that haven't taken me up on that yet. So please tour the jail and the dispatch center. You can get a good understanding of what we're up against. Thank you.
Thank you, Sheriff. Anyone else on the list?
No.
I'll open it up to anyone who has not signed up. You may still speak to the board. Does anyone wish to speak? Does anyone wish to speak? Does anyone wish to speak? Hearing no reply, we will close the hearing at this time. Do I need a motion to adjourn? Okay. Okay, I need a motion to adjourn. Motion by Mr. Wagner. He's very reliable. Second by Virginia. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Opposed? We are adjourned for our budget meeting. Next, I will call the county board meeting to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance and prayer by Mr. Tremmel. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Lord, as we gather tonight at this meeting, we ask that you will be in our midst. Help us to make decisions that will be pleasing to you. Help us to be able to discuss the matters at hand in a reasonable way and be willing to give up having our own way. God, let this meeting be productive and help us to keep you in the forefront of our minds as we do the work set before us. Amen.
The attendance is, roll call is 19 board members present, 1 excused. Next, I'd ask for a motion to approve the agenda. Motion by Wagner, second by Dobbins. Any questions or changes to the agenda? We will be addressing a change later for some of the dates for meetings. Any other issues? All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Opposed? The agenda is approved. Next is a motion to approve the minutes. Chuck. Motion by Mr. Wagner, second by Ms. Haskey. Any questions or comments on the minutes? All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Opposed? The minutes are approved. Next, we go to citizens' input that applies to any county board issues. The same rules for the public comment apply to this as it did to the hearing. Does anyone wish to speak to the board? Does anyone wish to speak? Does anyone wish to speak? Hearing no reply, we'll close citizen input, run and move to appointments. Would the clerk please read the appointment?
Kewaunee County Public Safety Facility Study Committee. A change, a member added, Sandy Chrisman, 822 6th Street, Kewaunee.
Thank you. I'd ask for a motion to approve. Motion by Mr. Poppy, second by Mr. Augustine. Just want to make one comment. That was a request of the city of Kewaunee to participate in the jail study committee, mostly to be part of a possible site selection when that takes place. Any comments about the appointment? All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Opposed? The appointment is approved. Next, we'll go to annual reports. First report is Clerk of Court, Becky DeTurville.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the board. You should have all received my written report, and I just want to go through and summarize. I had some reports attached to it, the date range state treasurer's report. That shows the total amount that
gets paid over to the county treasurer on the monthly basis. There was a total of $504,720.74. The next two reports shows the breakdown between what the state retains and what the county retains. Of that, the county was getting $115,420.30, and the state gets $389,344. So you can see that the county really doesn't retain nearly as much as what we pay over to the state. The fourth report shows the date range county treasurer report. That was a total of $80,375.66. That is all county retained money. Two of the larger amounts in that report are the attorney fees and guardian ad litem fees that we have been reimbursed by the parties in the cases. My last attachment is the information regarding the TRIP program. That's a state tax refund intercept program. And we received a total of $27,510.01 in that in 2018. Once we certify a debt, we remain on the list of agencies that will receive money, excuse me. Once the balance falls below $20, though, they will no longer collect. It's a useful tool, but as the years have gone by, it's not as productive as it used to be in gaining funds for us. I am pursuing another avenue currently, so I'm hoping that that will pan out much better for us. I also gave a summary of our case types and how many were filed in 2018. Those remained fairly consistent. Once a case is filed, depending on the case type, the lifespan of the case can be a short time or a long time. Family and paternity cases are the gifts that keep on giving. Even though a divorce may be granted, they're gonna come back with post-judgment issues, needing changes of child support, things like that. So those tend to be ongoing for a very long time. In 2018, we had a total of 3 jury trials for a total of 7 trial days. The cost for that was $8,769.37. I'd like to thank you for taking your time to review my report, and if anyone has any questions for me, I'd be happy to answer them.
Mr. Wagner.
Is there a percentage, or do you know what the percentage is of guardian ad litem fees that are not paid or that we don't get back?
I would say there's a high amount. I do my best to try and monitor once the current issue that brought them back to court where the guardian ad litem may have been appointed. We don't do the order for reimbursement until that is completely done. So now with e-filing as well, it can be a little bit harder to track because you don't have that physical paper that comes in that might say, oh yeah, this was the final bill. If someone imports it, you know, we send it over for payment, but we might not catch it until maybe a month or two later. Sometimes it can be longer. All of a sudden someone asks about a case and we're like, oh, you know, we didn't prepare the order for the reimbursement on this case. So then we go back and get that prepared. Some parties are really good at making their payments. Others, they just really don't have the financial means to do it, but we're willing to work with them on payment plans. I do take civil judgments on those, so we are getting interest.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, for the 14 years I was chair of the finance committee, it was something we always would grapple with every year, trying to get a better way to try to make those people pay up, and it's been an ongoing problem, and
it has, and unfortunately, starting in 2020, right now we currently pay 70 per hour to the guardian ad litems and the court-appointed attorneys, dean appointments, but that's being changed to $100. So I'm afraid we're gonna see an increase in those expenditures, but like I said, we are pursuing another avenue for collections. You just recently passed the resolution where I can contract with SDC, and I am finalizing all of that where we can start turning things over and talking with other clerks. I think we're gonna be amazed at the amounts of money we see coming in once we do that.
Anyone else? Ms. Dobbins?
I wanted to thank you for the thorough explanation of all the abbreviations. I think I've asked for that last year because I was like, wasn't sure what some of them were. And each special area has its own abbreviation. So now I've got a good copy of your abbreviations. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else? Okay, thank you very much, Becky.
Thank you.
Next report is registered probate Juliet Schleiss.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the board. It's been a busy year in the courts. In March, we transitioned into e-filing for all juvenile cases, thus making all case types mandatory e-filing, with the exception of injunctions, which will be implemented by the end of the year. Although I miss the face-to-face contact with filers coming into the office, it definitely is more efficient. In the report that I handed out to all of you, the numbers have remained pretty consistent. It should be noted on page 9 that the collection of reimbursement has gone up for the third consecutive year. Just under $45,000 was collected thanks to the diligent efforts of our department through collections and tax intercept. This is money that Kewaunee County has paid out, which has been reimbursed to the county. When we request reimbursement, we offer a payment plan and stress that they pay what they can afford. Many of the people who come through our office are going through difficult times, and we don't want to create a hardship for them. And many times they pay more or pay it up when they get back on their feet. If they stop paying, they're given notice that it will be turned over to tax intercept, which is followed through with if they don't respond. And we've been pretty successful with collecting money through tax intercept over the years. On page 10, the will for safekeeping numbers have gone up quite a bit in the last few years. Possibly the word may be getting out through local attorneys that a will can be registered in the probate office for a $10 fee, where it will be kept for safekeeping in our vault. And also the fact that the will has been filed goes out online, so that when the person passes away, the will can be easily located versus, many times the will is not able to be located, and it can cause a lot of issues and create messy estates, especially if it's a second marriage type situation. So when someone passes away, Wisconsin statute dictates that the original will shall be filed in the probate office within 30 days of the date of death, whether or not there's going to be a probate proceeding. The statute is in place in the event that somebody intentionally may be withholding an original will, maybe to try to benefit themselves. So it gives the court leverage in getting the original will filed. The transfer by affidavit form, which is used quite a bit, it was revamped this year and is available on the Wisconsin State Bar website, as well as the probate website, wripa.org. This simple 3-page form can be utilized when the total gross value of a decedent's assets are below $50,000. It can be submitted to a financial institution to close out an account without having to do a probate proceeding. The form actually can even be used to transfer real estate that's under $50,000. Feel free to contact my office if you are in need of assistance with any of these procedures. And thank you for your time.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Juliet? No questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we had on the agenda Dr. Raffin, but I see he is not here right now, so we will go to Mr. Feld, County Administrator.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I thought at this time we would go over the county budget. Hopefully everyone has that in front of them. I had also sent a kind of a summary sheet to everyone. If there are folks that don't have it, I have a few extras. Chuck, you need one? Yes. I apologize, there are a few typos and a few mistakes, like the very first one, summary is not with an E, it's with an A, but we'll make do. I'll go through all of them, and as you'll see with that sheet, I've given you the department, the page number, the budget line item, and then some commentary. So that way, while this may not be answer every question that a county board member may have, I thought these might be some of the main ones that folks may have. So I'll go through that. If there is any questions with any of the items, as long as it pleases the chair, then I would just have county board supervisors ask the questions at that time. So I'll start very first on page 20 in the administrator's budget. And under the line of contracted services, you'll see the line has a listing of $145,500. That is money that is coming from the general fund to pay for 3 studies, possibly 3 studies. The first one is phase 2 of the jail study. That's approximately $67,100 roughly. The second one would be a broadband feasibility study. That would be roughly about $60,000 as well. And then the third study is $20,000 for a 911 study. What the 911 study is to look at the feasibility from a technological standpoint of having services regarding 911 services shared or combined with Kewaunee and Door County. Next is still on page 20 under the administration HR section. There is a typo. It's not contracted services, it's professional development services. That line is $25,000, and that is similar to what was last year to help and to continue funding continuous improvement and lean principles within the county to help get more employee productivity. We've started to do some of that in human services, but I am a strong believer that this could be done county-wide. As for if you looked at the contracted services line and see $25,000 there, that is for our insurance consultant, Horton Consultant. That is similar to what has been happening in the past years. I am not expecting there to be an increase, but if there is a slight increase, then we have that money budgeted. Moving on to page 21 under the PIO tourism section, under website and other info, $30,000. That is money set aside in 2020 to redesign and to have a new host for a county website. The current website is hosted by the state. The current website, because of that and the limitations, you can't have videos on the website. You can't have large documents on the website because for right now how it's hosted, it does not have the size or the wherewithal to do so. We want to have a county website that is more navigable as well as allows for more information to be accessed and downloaded. Page 27 under child support, there's no specific items. I just wanted to highlight that the child support program does not use any tax levy. Actually, through their reimbursement process, actually, we receive more reimbursement revenue than actually the department pays or than what the department costs and expenses. So that's one of the shining stars of the county, that Cindy and her staff do an excellent job of providing these services and not costing the taxpayers a dime. As for circuit court, for those of you that may have read in some of the earlier pages when you go into the statistics, it shows that the circuit court's budget has increased 335% from last year. And the only reason why is because we had an employee that elected to take the county health plan. But I wanted to put it on there only because if you saw that large percentage increase, I wanted to be able to explain that. The circuit court and clerk of court, clerk of court, actually that is page 38, not 37, and there is also a typo there regarding the guardian ad litem fees and the legal fees. The change is not from $40 to $70. It's, as the clerk of courts, Becky, had said, it's from $70 to $100. The increase is still the same as an increase of $30, but that will mean an increase in cost to the county as we have to provide those funds to reimburse those attorneys. Coroner, there are no comments there. Corporation Counsel on page 54 regarding fees. The Corporation Counsel did recommend an increase in the guardian power of attorney fee from $250 to $300. Under the county board, under page 58, you had the committee member per diem line. I had recommended a flat $50 fee. The current compensation for county board members is $40 for the first hour and then $10 for each subsequent 30 minutes. The executive committee had reviewed that, and they had voted that the current compensation level stay the same, and that it stay at $40 and $10 as to every single half hour after. In that same respect, for the county board per diem, currently county board members receive $100 per meeting. I had recommended it be $75 per meeting. The executive committee again voted to keep the compensation level as is at $100. So that money has been put back into the budget. Under county clerk on page 66, programming costs. 2020 is an election year. Therefore, voting machines will have to be programmed. This is something that happens roughly every 2 years. Jamie does an excellent job of being pretty much on the nose as to what those programming costs will be. So again, no issues regarding programming costs. District attorney, I have no comments there. Emergency management, there are no budget items, but as we start to move forward in 2020, the issue of county towers, I would like to have centralized under emergency management. So that way when we start talking about maintenance and signals and frequencies and looking at it from a countywide perspective instead of just specifically a radio dispatch perspective. Family Court Commissioner, again, no budget items, but just to plant a seed. The current Family Court Commissioner just last year had retired as the city attorney for the city of Kewaunee. Mr. Wolski, while doing an excellent job, is not getting any younger, so we will eventually have to look at what to do with the Family Court Commissioner position when he chooses to vacate that position. Under Finance on page 101, under the line Maintenance Agreements, there's an increase for annual maintenance costs. We have just installed and implemented the timekeeping system, Time Clock Plus, so there will be an increase in the annual maintenance agreement for that software. Also on page 101, health insurance had an increase. Again, an employee has elected to enroll in the county health plan. On page 105, under sales tax revenue, we had in the past budgeted $1 million even as sales tax revenue. We are now increasing that to $1.1 million. The trend has shown that we are now collecting roughly an additional $100,000, so we are incorporating that into our budget estimates. In that same respect, on 105 under the contingency account, just for those of you that are unaware, the contingency account is what I'll call the act of God account. If there's certain things that we just did not foresee and there's costs that, a perfect example, let's say the clerk of courts had 5 trials instead of 3 trials and therefore does not have sufficient funds, then the contingency account would be used to help cover that excess. That has been $100,000 for a number of years now. That seems to have been a good number and what I continue to recommend. Under 105 also for Violence Intervention Project and KCDC, I am recommending funding levels at the same as last year at $26,000 and $40,000 respectively. For the Library Board, which is Act 420 payments, those are required by law. We pay roughly between $50,000 and $60,000, usually not up to 60, but in the $50,000 range to Brown County and Manitowoc County for residents that use their libraries. That is a bill that we have to pay. State law requires us to do so. In that same respect, there are quarterly payments that we pay to the local libraries at Kewaunee and Algoma. That is part of our agreement, the county's agreement with those libraries to pay a 60-40 split. We have a specific formula that we follow regarding that funding that has been worked through with those libraries and has been working well over the past few years. Page 106, the Build America bond rebate. You have seen that that number actually is cut by half, and the reason why is we are going to refinance that debt in 2020. That debt has very high interest rates, and we are going to refinance that debt at a lower rate. But once we refinance the debt, then we're not going to receive those rebates anymore. But I'm fine with that because we'll pay less in interest costs. As for the Capital Improvement Fund on page 107, no budget item needed, just making people aware that that fund is used to assist in the planning and purchasing of equipment and capital costs. We are currently trying to build up that fund balance between $400,000 and $500,000, and the reason why is so that way when there are spikes in outlay, there may be some cars that need to be replaced that were unexpected, or some type of building repair that would be unexpected, then that fund can help to smooth out those spikes. And then when there are valleys, that fund can then be rebuilt back up. And that doesn't provide, and that helps to lessen the impact on county budgets, on the county's budget as well as those department budgets. As for the Economic Development Fund, which is on page 107, I am recommending that the Dominion donation of $500,000 be placed in that fund. I also then recommend that $40,000 come out of that fund to pay for the county's share of the broadband expansion grant. We are partnering with Door County Broadband. The county and the state will be putting $40,000 towards that project. I have always said that I believe the Economic Development Fund should be used to move dirt, and to me you have to move dirt to put in a tower, so I am recommending $40,000 to pay for our share of that project. Page 112 in Highway, again, no specific budget items. The levy is the same as last year, but the Highway Department has requested a $400,000 transfer from its Roads and Bridges Fund to do additional projects, road projects. And the winter maintenance budget of $740,000 is remaining the same as last year. We know that from a historical standpoint that between $700,000 and $800,000 from a 3 to 5 year average is a good range. There are some years where the costs are higher. There are some where the costs are lower. I'm recommending $740,000. As for solid waste, I have no comments on the solid waste department. Human services, again, no specific budgetary items. I am recommending the same budget as last year, which is $1 million and change. I think $1,034,000 and some odd dollars. But what you are seeing is that there's going to be less money put towards out-of-home placement and more money put towards family and kinship care. Mr. Johnson believes that, and I support his decision, that we want kids to be in with family, friends, family and kin and friends, as opposed to in out-of-home facilities that may not help the recovery and the outcomes that would be better served with family and friends. The ADRC, the contract continues to be the same as the previous year, so I have no comment there. Information services on page 164, there was an outlay request that was denied, of which there wasn't a big fight about that. Part of the reason why is in my discussions with the IT director, he had indicated that he is not really ready to move forward with that project in 2020, so we took the money out of that outlay budget. As for land and water conservation, I have no real comments. There's been a little bit more state aid, but as for funding or staffing, I believe that the land and water department has sufficient staff. With zoning having been over there and the transition seems to be working pretty well, we have additional staff in that the person that was doing a lot of the zoning and the septic inspection is a conservation specialist and will also be helping out in areas with the land and water department. The maintenance department on page 191 on the outlay line, there will be $12,000 allocated to install LED lighting in the administration, the human services, and the courthouse buildings. We believe from the electricity savings, we're going to see a 2-year payback of roughly, a payback in roughly 2 years. So I believe spending $12,000 now and getting that all back in 2 years is a sound investment. There was also a request very late in or right as we were putting out the budget for $90,000 for a central HVAC computer system. I denied that request only because I did not have enough time to really review and analyze the advantages and disadvantages of putting in that system. There's no timeline or time crunch that it needed to be done this year. It's something that we can look at in 2020 and decide whether we want that incorporated into the 2021 budget. Promotion and recreation, again, no specific budget items, but I just wanted to throw out some items of note. One, the revenue at Winter Park continues to increase. Racing for 2020 is still uncertain. The department continues to look at grant funding to help supplement for park improvement costs and projects, as well as the fair exhibition hall rate was increased. We saw a large increase of people wanting to rent the exhibition hall, so we're trying to find the sweet spot from pricing, and so we'll raise up the price a little more and see where that goes. One last item that I want to make the county board aware is that in 2019, and the year is not over, the Parks Department has generated over $100,000 of revenue. And now the majority of that is Winter Park, but you also have that from racing and from rentals and from grant fund. You have it from a number of different items, so I just wanted to point that out, that Dave Myers and his staff are doing an excellent job. Public health for page 223, under position summary, you will see that the community health educator position was eliminated and the public health nurse position was increased to full-time. Cindy Kinnard has done a yeoman's job of trying to staff that department. In previous years, we did have a full-time public health nurse, But what would happen is we would continue to have them for a few months, and then they'd leave because we'd lose them to private clinics that can pay much more per hour. And so that was part of the reason why she wanted to try to do the community health educator position. And now that she believes she has a person that will be willing to stay full-time as a public health nurse, and I want to give her that opportunity of having a full-time public health nurse. There is also increases in grant revenue, which means there will be a slight increase in the tax levy match. But again, Cindy has done an excellent job of making sure that we are using every single penny, and I mean every single penny, of those grant dollars. Going to the second to last page, I have no comments regarding register and probate. Julie does an excellent job in that department. Register of Deeds, you had heard in previous testimony. I had recommended the elimination of a 0.2 temporary employee. That's 8 hours per week. I believe that we have current staff that can cover that time. In fact, I had recommended that 10 hours a week be provided from the Land Information Office, and that we also use more state grant funds to help pay for staff wages within the Register of Deeds office. Regarding the sheriff, the outlay lines, again, there were a number of items that were requested by the sheriff. I understand his concern regarding the 911 system and the radios. From the capital improvement plan, a couple of those items were actually slated for 2021 and 2022, and therefore those, from a budgeting standpoint, I requested that those stay in their subsequent years of 2021 and 2022. The sheriff is correct that I did at the present time take out the money that would be the match for the Next Gen 911 grant. That is coming in fall. We'll like to see what happens and what the details are when that happens, and if that is something that the board wants to move forward with, then yes, we would take that from contingency account or general fund, depending on what the fund balances would be. And I understand the sheriff's concern regarding that, and if we do go forward with the award and the grant, then I support his his recommendation that we take the money and do our match. I have no comments regarding the county treasurer. The county treasurer is doing an excellent job with the collection of fees, and we continue, knock on wood, to get more and more of our interest income. Again, interest rates are continuing to rise ever so slightly, which means a little bit more revenue for the county as well as for our investments. UW Extension, on page 271, I had recommended the elimination of a 1.0 FTE program assistant. It was a couple years ago that I had recommended that, but the board had decided that we should fill that position prior to Farm Technology Days. Farm Technology Days has gone and passed. Also looking in other extension offices, many of those offices have only one administrative staff person, plus the number of educator positions has gone down from 4.5 down to 3. So therefore, I think only one administrative staff is warranted. The executive committee had approved putting that position back into the budget, and the finance committee had recommended no funding for that position. So again, that will be an issue that the county board will have to resolve. Then on page 269 under outlay, I had recommended that the extension office be relocated to the Luxembourg office. We have space at the Luxembourg office. Again, with roughly there being 4 staff, I felt that the space in Luxembourg could accommodate those 4 people, and that would allow for more flexibility within this building as well as the Human Services building for current as well as future needs of staffing in departments within these buildings, as well as the location of the Luxembourg office could be more conducive for the 4-H position and potentially the agricultural position. And so $20,000 was budgeted to assist in that relocation. And then last but not least, Veteran Services. I have no recommendations there. Rob, who's the new Veteran Service Officer, is off to a good start and seems to be really taking to the job. If there's any questions that any supervisor has on any of these items or any other items, I did not go on to the 4th page, which just talks about the administrator's letter, as well as the county budget charts and tables. I could go through all of that, but I think that you can read those pretty simple, and we don't want to stay here till 11 o'clock, and you don't want to do that. You don't want to give me unlimited time to talk. So if there's any questions from any of the supervisors, I'll answer them as best I can.
You'll have a month, or not quite a month, before we actually take up the budget at next county board meeting. So if you have any questions in the meantime, you can always call Scott and discuss and clarify any questions.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Or any
sorry.
committee person, yes.
Yes, I strongly encourage that if you have any questions regarding any of the budget items or any of the rationale as to why I made a certain recommendation or other, please feel free to come and talk to me. I can come to your place of business. I can come to your home. I can talk to you on the phone, whatever you'd like. In that same respect, if it's specifically finance and you don't want to hear from me, I know that Mr. Kunish can give you the financial skinny on anything that you need as well.
Any questions for Scott before we move on? Okay, there are no questions. So Dr. Raffin still is not here, and he may have to reschedule, I would guess. So we'll go to committee reports. First committee is Highway Solid Waste. We got minutes from September. Are there any questions for Mr. Poppy? There are no questions for Highway. Go to the Executive Committee. We got minutes from September, and tonight you got the October minutes on your desk.
Mr. Chair, yes, I do know that there are formatting issues for the ones from October. I was trying to get, we had 3 meetings last week, and I was trying to get them all typed up furiously prior to tonight's meeting, so I apologize the formatting errors, but they have been fixed.
Probably my fault because I asked Scott to get those minutes out with all his other work he's had lately, but because the issues were discussed that we're going to vote on tonight, I thought those were important to have. Any Mr. Wagner?
Yeah, I guess in the on the executive, the first set of minutes that we had in the packet, under the administrator's report, trying to find the right line here. The 4th line from the bottom where it says "the will begin," I think should be "they." Pretty minor, but if somebody's reading them, I guess to make them
Hey,
understand.
Scott, you could make that change.
Yeah.
Thank you. September.
The September 11th minutes. It's down on the bottom of the page in the administrator's report, 4th line from the bottom where that sentence begins. "The will begin phase 2. I think it should be "they will begin phase 2. And then in the chairman's report, which is towards the end of the minutes on the 2nd page,
Yep.
the second line, I think, remove one of the dentals. There's dental.
Okay. Anything else for Executive Committee? Questions, comments? All right, we'll go to Public Health and Veterans. I think we just had Veterans, though. Is that correct?
Public Health just met yesterday, so there was not time to get the minutes from that.
So
They
any,
had September minutes in last month.
okay. Well, we have Veterans minutes this month, yes. Any questions for Ms. Dobbins on the veterans minutes? Mr. Wagner?
Yes, I did, and now I'm trying to find it here. I wrote it. There was a financial report with the veterans. Oh, here it is. On the second set, the 23 September, on the top it says financial report by CVSO Secretary. The relief balance as of 23 September 19 of so much, the 1,116. And then donations account as of 23 November. We're not there yet. How do we, is
September.
that the right month?
We fixed that at our meeting. Yes,
Okay.
it should be September.
Okay, that's fine.
You're taking care of that, or you already took care of it?
Already
Okay,
took care of
thank
it
you.
yesterday, yeah.
All right, thanks. Anything else for veterans minutes? Next, we'll go to UW Extension. Any questions for Mr. Romden? 2 sets of minutes. Mr. Wagner?
I just want to make a comment concerning the joint meeting. One thing that we found out while we were up there, just for those that don't know this, up near the Rhinelander area, there is a potato seed farm. I'll call it that. It's a research center. It's the only one of its kind on the entire planet, okay, where they determine how to certify potato seed. And I guess there's more and more concern about that facility, and potatoes potentially have lots of different funguses and diseases that can get in them, as I understand it. And so, lo and behold, the Door County Research Center has become now a seed bank, which is, in their determination, I guess, it's far enough away from the Rhinelander facility so that they're more assured that the funguses and things that could upset those different potato seeds, it's far enough away, but I think one thing that it does do is that it pretty much almost guarantees that that facility in Door County will be there for a awful long time. And I think that's very important, especially for some of our growers, as we see, in particular, the vineyards in Door and Kewaunee County become more and more popular. The research that's done by that facility in those areas is so important to these different producers. So it's not just, you know, the regular standard agriculture issues. There's a lot of other things and a lot of other research that's done at that facility that helps those people be better performers, I guess, to produce more.
Questions regarding extension minutes? Okay, next is Land and Water. Questions for Mr. Wagner. I hope somebody asks Chuck some questions here because he's been busy. Yes, Linda, Ms. Teskey.
I just have a question on the second page of the minutes. It said Seidel Mountain View Dairy Court hearing was held on August 21st. Judge ruled in favor of the county. What was that about?
Jeff, yeah, do you want to explain this? I guess it's probably better.
Sure. With the new ordinance that we passed last year, the Chapter 151 violations, or our Chapter 39, I've brought, 6, 8 of these by now, I think I brought, and Mr. Seidel wanted to challenge his citation in court. So we had a court trial. It lasted, I think, all morning long, and ultimately the county prevailed. The judge ruled in our favor, and we received a citation. I think it was $1,100 or something in that order, and Mr. Seidel paid in full.
Did the judge rule that same day?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Great. Good job, Jeff. You're 1 for 1 on those. Yes, Mr. Cretney.
Just a question on the study for the Anapi drawdown. Do we understand better now as to what the monitoring plan will be for, measuring total solids and such in the watershed?
The latest information that I've gotten from the person at the DNR, which is basically she's in charge of the TMDL, and so the original plan was to end the testing in the Anapee River, or that's what we're thinking, being specific here for the Anapee River. That testing was going to end next month in November. Coincidentally, the drawdown starts on November 1st, so we were very concerned with that. We would like to continue that testing. The whole county board passed a resolution asking for the DNR's assistance here to keep that testing running. What I got from these people down at the DNR was that they have now gotten some new type of testing equipment. It tests more things other than just the suspended solids and the nitrogen and phosphorus that are in the river. This new equipment has been installed and it is now running, and it is scheduled and it is paid for to run until next July. Now, at that time, so we have more months, but we're going to get at least, let's look at it as 8 months worth of additional testing besides the 3 sensors that were there to begin with. The first one is above the Forestville Mill Pond. The second one is just shortly below the dam, and the other one is down, I believe, they test down in the Washington Road area in Kewaunee County, in the town of Anapee. So those will stay there, but there are there's additional equipment in there now testing even more things. But it's some new equipment, and the DNR is going to be having to put together protocols and stuff like this for specifically how to do that. That's what I was told. So that's all I know at this time.
Okay, Tom, you had another question?
I was just wondering, do they have anything that indicates what the quality of those readings will be, or what kind of, how valuable the information will be to us?
I'm sure they believe that it's going to be very valuable, because it's going to be even more detailed than the stuff that they're getting now, which is the amount of suspended solids in the water, the amount of nitrogen, and the amount of phosphorus. So that's all I know as far as detail now. It's supposed to be more detailed than that, but.
Well, I think the intent of our resolution was to have pre-drawdown data. And then after they open the gates, so over time, starting in November, we'd have follow-up data. Now, the comparison of those two sets of numbers should be quite revealing. And because we've been told that they don't expect a great deal of additional contamination to come down after the drawdown. But we should find that out, yeah.
Yeah, I guess that's where my concern would be, is that there will be additional material coming down after the drawdown takes place, and that we can measure that to determine what kind of problems that may result from that.
Okay, any other questions for Mr. Wagner? Next, we'll go to public safety. Any questions for Mr. Mastler? There are no questions. We'll go to finance. 2 sets of minutes. Any questions for Ms. Haskey? There are no questions. Human Service had no minutes. Parks and Promotion and Maintenance. Pardon?
Human Services didn't meet yet. We meet Thursday.
Good. I'm glad we don't have minutes for a meeting that didn't happen. Parks and Promotion, any questions for Mr. Yonke? Mr. Wagner.
Not a question, just another point of information. I contacted Mike Fries. He is the executive director of the Wisconsin Coastal Management Council. He's got contacts in the Corps of Engineers And I'm trying to get more information, written information from them as specifically what would be required in order to accomplish what some of the people up in the Red River Park area up by Dykesville would want, which would be a new launch or dock. But I have not heard from Mike. I expect to hear from him shortly here. Whatever I find out, I'll give to the Promotion and Rec Department.
Who's Mike? Say that again.
Mike Freeze, F-R-I-I-S.
Oh, okay.
Mike is the Executive Director of the Wisconsin Coastal Management Council, which I was appointed to year before last, I guess. We had a meeting a couple of weeks ago, and I talked with him about it at that time, called him up and discussed it a little further. He's going to, he understands what we're looking for, and he's going to try to see where's the best place in the Corps of Engineers to address this, I guess, to look at it.
Okay. Thanks. Mr. Yankee.
I did some research too with the help of Chuck. Contacted a DNR lady for our area, and she sent me all kinds of info on what we would need to, apply for a permit. Permit is needed, but she suggested it wouldn't be a good idea without a break wall. Especially this year, it would have been gone. So that's just a little update on our side.
So they have plenty of grant money available for a break wall, like $1 million or $2 million.
Right.
Door County got $4 million for one launch area up there
Matching, huh?
at the old quarry. Yep. Any other questions for Mr. Yankee? Okay, revolving loan, no minutes. KCDC, any questions for Mr. Poppy? August minutes, it looks like. Yeah. Yeah, August 10th minutes. There are no questions, so we'll go to, we have broadband subcommittee. We have minutes for that. Any questions from Scott?
Just one question I guess I would ask, and if this project in the town of Lincoln, looking for a high spot for this antenna or this tower, why wouldn't they put it on the highest spot in the county, which is in the town of Red River?
Part of that, again, there's a whole variety of factors that come into how you put a tower location. Door County Broadband did their analysis as to where would be the best place for a tower that they could support, and that is in the town of Lincoln.
I saw the location was, they listed the name of the people. Does anyone know where that is? Maybe you do know where that is, Corey. Is that on top of the hill on Spruce Road? Or is it closer to Rosaire? Oh, closer to Lincoln? Oh, okay.
South side of the hill. The tower that's up there now, the south of that.
South of it.
Straight south. So intersection of Martin Road and Spruce Road be the southwest corner.
Okay. That wouldn't be the highest point, though, yeah.
No.
Jeff?
I wanted to clarify that I believe the highest point in the county is Chernyville Hill, which is located near Crohn's Cheese Factory at about 1,020 feet.
There is a marker, a pin in the rock, in the woods up on the hill there in Red River, claiming that's the high spot.
Jeff, where did you get that number from? I never.
Charged with knowing all these things.
Okay, we'll put that in the minutes. Anything else on broadband committee meeting?
I would just add to all of that it was explained that was going in the highest point in the town of Lincoln. It's not, so just to clarify
It's on the other
that.
side. It's on the downside of the hill, isn't it?
Yes.
Like right off the end of the runway? Yes.
Again, we have to remember that it's not you can't always locate a tower at the highest location because we have private landowners that will determine whether something is located on their property or not. So what happens is with any type, whether it's a cellular tower, whether it's a Wi-Fi, regardless, private companies have to therefore negotiate with private landowners to find the best location that they can. And so there's a number of different factors in there. It's not that we can just pick the highest spot and that's where it goes.
No, I understand all that. It was just been kind of weird the way it's all went. So, because none of those other property owners were asked anything about it or anything. So, and the whole application thing is all incomplete yet too with the town. So. Right, so that's...
Okay, anything else on the broadband committee minutes? All right. Public safety did not have a meeting, did not have minutes for this meeting. Next we'll go to item 11 on the agenda. There is no ordinance to take up for first reading. Does anyone wish to have a recess? A recess? A recess? We should recess. Okay, we'll just keep going. No recess. Someone has to leave the meeting, so we're going to go to resolutions. I'm going to start with resolution C. Would the clerk please read C? Resolution broadband grant resolution.
Approval of broadband expansion grant contracts. Fiscal impact statement, $40,000 from Economic Development Fund.
Thank you. Anyone wish to make a motion to approve? Motion by Mr. Love, second by Ms. Haskey. Are any questions on the funding of the broadband grant, our portion of the grant? Are there any questions? You may register your vote.
I would just question that if that is where that tower is going, there is no conditional use permit yet granted from the town of Lincoln. So
The county will not be funding anything that doesn't get approved through the PSC. So we'll be aware of how that process takes place. I called for a vote. Yes would be to approve, no is to disapprove. The resolution is approved, 18 yes, 1 no, 1 absent. Okay, would the clerk please read D of the resolutions, item D?
Resolution approving property lease agreement, tower at fairgrounds. Fiscal impact, fixed monthly rental of $100 per month for each 1-foot dish and $200 per month for each 2-foot dish, plus a shared revenue payment of 3.5% of all services DCB bills to customers who access internet from the tower.
Thank you. It asks for a motion to approve. Motion by Mr. Mastler. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Luft. Are there any questions on the resolution? This is leasing space on the existing tower at the fairgrounds in Luxembourg. And there was a negotiated, I guess you'd call it rental or royalty agreement with the provider. Are there any questions? Yes, Mr. Yankee.
I guess there was a question from the sheriff if it was going to interfere on reception or anything. Was
Yes.
that answered?
The broadband provider did hire a consultant that checked the signals and made an assessment of what possibility of interference there would be. But the understanding is that the additional equipment, if it's on the pole and it interferes with our operations, it comes off the pole. Is that correct, Jeff? More or less bluntly? And that's covered in contract. It's a very, very well-written contract that covers that scenario. So who made the motion? Massler and Luft. Okay, yeah. Any other questions on the resolution? You may register your vote. Yeah, or move the batteries around sometimes. You just move them a little bit. Something's interfering with your signal there. Okay, we have a result. The resolution is approved. 18 yes, 1 no, 1 absent. Okay, now we can go to the A and B. Would the clerk please read A?
A resolution granting the petition for bridge aid, Town of Casco, fiscal impact $40,500 from County Aid Bridge Fund.
Motion by Mr. Ramden, second by Mr. Poppy. Are there any questions about the bridge aid resolution? No questions? You may register your vote. Okay, Mr. Tremmel has left, so the vote, I don't know if you can get the vote out, Jamie? Okay. I'm rushing you too much. I gotta slow down a little bit.
Yeah, we're gonna have to revote.
You want us to revote?
Hang on. Okay. Hang on 1 second, though.
Can someone go get Mr. Tremmel out of the parking lot? No, Chuck, you can't vote on it. Okay.
Press abstain.
John, here it says the 20%, the town pays this project will be paid
I could take a voice vote if you want.
80%, that's 100% higher.
What if I push abstain?
Oh, no, I can't do that either.
Just try voting once. See if it, just try to hit your.
What did you like us to do?
Not
What
letting
again?
it.
Nope. The grant pays the 81%.
I'm froze.
Voice vote. Quicker option.
Take a roll call.
I think we need better broadband in the county boardroom.
20%
Isn't that the 20%?
I remember that, Chuck. And somebody told us it was not possible or easy to be done.
Okay.
Yeah.
Vote.
Okay. Are we ready to
Yeah,
accept
it
the
should-
vote?
yeah, it should be good.
Okay, you may re-vote on the last issue, the resolution to approve bridge aid for Casco. Okay, the resolution's approved, 17 yes, 0 no, 1 abstain. Mr. Lucas, okay. Yep. Well, it was a close vote. You almost lost the money for the bridge aid. Okay, Jamie, next, the last one, yep.
A resolution granting the petition for bridge aid, Town of Franklin, fiscal impact, $34,000 from County Aid Bridge Fund.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve? Motion by Mr. Koshart, second by Mr. Augustine. Are there any questions about the bridge aid for Franklin? You may register your vote. The motion is approved, 18 yes. The resolution is approved, 18 yes, 0 no, 2 absent. Okay, that concludes our resolutions for this evening. Next is ordinances. There are none. Communications from other counties. Does the clerk have any communications?
From Algoma County, support legislation which addresses a nonpartisan redistricting process.
Thank you. Okay, we'll go to events. Does anyone have announcements? I think we have one here someone put out. Ms. Dobbins, you want to explain it?
This is the candlelight ceremony. It's at the church on Highway 42. And a candle is lit for every victim of domestic abuse in the year 2018. And the Algoma High School Choir performs, and then there's a meal afterwards. It's a very moving and meaningful event.
Thank you. Any other events? Mr. Luft.
On October 30th, there will be Booze and Bites, which is the former Taste of the County at the Kewaunee County Fairgrounds. And I have tickets for that. So does Gary and others. So if you're interested in going, that will hopefully be a very fun kind of event. And also, just so everybody is still aware, the well testing from the Land and Water Conservation Department is scheduled to be done on the 21st. If you would like to pick up your bottles on the 17th, you can test your well on the 21st, turn it in, and have all of that testing done at the same time. We get a little bit better price that way. And if you need further information, all the information about the well testing is on the Kewaunee.County.org site.
Thank you. Ms. Dobbins, you had another one.
I have another one, yes. Violence Intervention Project has been in existence for 30 years. I'm very proud of all the good work they've done in all those years. And they're celebrating with having a gala. The gala, the location ended up being changed. It's going to be at JW's in Sloven. There's going to be an art auction with some really high-quality art done by Kewaunee County residents and some people outside the county as well. And it should be a very worthwhile event.
Okay, thanks. Virginia, I think you were involved in the founding of that organization, yeah?
I was, yes.
I don't want to give your age or anything, but it's 30 years back. Anything else interesting in the county? Okay, we'll move on. Chairman's comments. You had in your packet the minutes of a sort of a informal meeting we had to discuss housing. And that was prompted by Mr. Schmidt a few months back, asked to delay funding of a formal study that would have been done through Bay Lakes, because we wanted to have a roundtable discussion of some of the locals and some of the other advisory people that we found. It was very productive. I hope you read this, the minutes. This is shortened minutes of the meeting. Mr. Schmidt, did you have any comments about that meeting?
No, I would just like to comment that it also felt it also went very good. I thought there was some very good ideas brought by the real estate agent in particular. Her past experience working with government before she went into real estate, I thought she was very incisive, and I'd like to see another roundtable discussion, maybe involving some of the city leaders, So it covers different areas of the county, as Mr. Feld had pointed out.
Right. So at some point, that resolution to do a formal study is going to come back to the board for approval, because I think your motion was for 60 days. I think we went, yeah. Actually, we're going to miss the 60 days, but we'll probably do it next month. I have nothing else. Jail tours, somebody mentioned that already, I guess, that we get jail tours studied, scheduled. Jeff, are you going?
Yes.
Yep.
Right here.
Okay, that is in Green Lake County. I believe they have a newer jail, and then subsequent to that, we'll be going to Dorr and Oconto. And hopefully we'll all get out on work release, so everything will be fine. Okay, dates. We set November and December. The agenda shows that we're suggesting January 14th, but there's a conflict with, was a highway convention or highway conference. So the new date proposed is January 14th at 6 o'clock. January 16th at 6 o'clock. What if we make it 10 o'clock? Okay. Anyone else can't make that date? We're in kind of a tight bind on that date because there's other events around it. So I ask for a motion to make the January meeting on the 16th at 6 o'clock. Motion by Mr. Kushart, second by Mr. Romden. Any other further discussion? All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Next, we proposed a date of February 11th, and that is to work around an election, primary election. That is either likely or for sure. Okay. So I'd ask for a motion to approve February 11th at 6 o'clock. Motion by Romden, second by Wagner. Okay.
Election day? 11th is election day.
Okay, second by Wagner. Any questions about that date? Any conflicts? Okay, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. I have to go back to chairman's comments because I forgot something. Linda Teskey is again going to handle our Christmas party, and that's going to be after the December 17th meeting. I don't know where we're going to have it, but I had a lot of comments last year and the year before that there are a number of people that wanted it in Kewaunee, so it's right near a meeting. So I'd like to see a show of hands if we're in favor of Kewaunee, some place in Kewaunee.
I'd like that, actually. Not unless Jason.
Okay, it's about 8. Yeah, I do too, Chuck. So it's, raise your hand if you don't care where it is. Oh, there we go. It's free. Linda, you can do whatever you want, but Kewaunee, she'll work on that and buy Tish Mills, okay. I need directions to get there.
I like fish mills. That's
So Linda will take care of that. I imagine she'll send out a note or email or something. Okay, I need a motion to adjourn. Motion by Mr. Wagner, second by Mr. Koshard. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, we are adjourned.
I got this at finance. I don't know why we didn't get them.
I didn't see one email either.
What happened to Dr.
I was just at finance because
Land and water.
Right.
I wasn't that hopeful to begin with.
And they found bedrock.
I just don't know.
What are you gonna do?
Scientist, yeah.
Must be the outer limits.
Kewaunee County. Showed pictures of your. You talked about buy your house at.
Oh, okay. Yeah, but they don't listen, do they? Kinda hard.
There's another one.